What is your name and residence?
My name is William Donnelly. I live in the town of Lucan in the township of Biddulph. I am the eldest son living of the late James Donnelly.
Tell me about your visit to your family on February 2nd.
I drove to my father's residence, and upon entering the house, I found my mother by the stove. She always wore on her flannels, and upon this occasion, she had red flannel skirt and her chemise and petticoat, and a small breakfast shawl over her head. She looked rather fantastic, and I said to her, "Mother, go dress yourself, for if Barnum were to come here and saw you now, he would have you at any price." Whereupon she burst into tears and said, It is easy for you to talk. If you were pulled around the country in the way Ryder and Carol is pulling me and your father, you would not feel like laughing. Good and honest neighbors are being kept from visiting our house, and they are no longer friendly with us. I know they so wish as well. I told my mother to stop crying, and she replied, "When you and the rest of the boys were children, I often took the light at midnight to look at you taking a happy sleep, full of hope that I might live to see you all men and be happy. But hope has left me. And my mind often tells me that Carol will get his end of us." I had a foreboding of something wrong was about to happen. When I went to leave, my father said, "Put out the mare and wait and have dinner with us." I said I was in a hurry, but he said, with one of his good-natured smiles, "Wait, it may be the last time we will ever have dinner together, as the Ryders and Carols might have me in London jail tomorrow." I felt very downhearted, and as if someone was hanging over me, which I could not account for. I did not feel like leaving the house, so I stayed for dinner and then said goodbye. As I started out, Tom called to me and said he would drive around my place on Wednesday. My cousin Bridget then came to the door and asked me if I had answered the letter she had received from her mother from Tipperary. I told her I had, and she said she would be glad to hear from all of us. Then I drove on. And this was the final interview I had with those family members.
And do you remember the night your brother John was killed?
Yeah. I was at my house that night, and Martin Hogan and my brother and John and my wife Nora remained all night. John came about dark, and he brought a pony and a harness for the purpose of getting a cutter to take to our lawyer to Granton the next day. My wife went to bed about 9 o'clock. Hogan and John went to bed together, and then I went to bed at 12:30.
Were you disturbed during the night?
Yes, about 24 minutes after 2.
And how were you disturbed?
There were parties outside the house, and then I heard them say, "Fire! Fire! Open the door, Will." I recognized the voices of Martin McLaughlin, young Patrick Ryder.
What did your brother do?
John came out of his room and went through mine and went to the kitchen.
Did you speak to John as he went out?
No.
Did he speak to you?
He said he wanted to see who was rapping at the door and calling fire. He did not wait for me, but opened the kitchen door.
And what occurred at the kitchen door?
I heard 2 shots fired in rapid succession, almost together. John fell back against the door of my bedroom. Immediately after he fell, there was 7 shots fired.
What did he say?
He said, Will, I'm shot. May the Lord have mercy on my soul."
What were the shots like that were fired?
Very loud report, almost as if they were fired together, and could hardly be distinguished. The gun was almost in the house, as I could smell powder seeping into my room.
Did you attend to your brother?
No. I went to leave my bed, but Hogan said to me, "Lay quiet, or we will all be killed. It is you they want." The missus got up instead. By then John was choking on his own blood. Nora went into the kitchen, where John was, and began pulling him towards my room. She said, "Oh Lord, he's dying." The missus got a piece of West candle, and Hogan held it in John's hand until he died.
And how long was it before he died?
About 5 minutes.
Did you attempt to tend to your brother?
No. Hogan kept on telling me to keep still or we will all be killed. He said if they find out that it's not you they shot, they will come back and kill you and me too.
And what was the next thing?
I turned the corner of the blind and looked out. I saw John Kennedy, James Carroll, James Ryder, and Junior Kennedy standing within 2 or 3 feet of the kitchen door. There were 3 others beside the fence whom I could not distinguish, but I took them to be Michael Heenan, Pat Ryder, and William Carroll.
And do you speak positively about Kennedy, James Carroll, and James Ryder, or to the best of your knowledge?
No, I speak positively.
How long have you known James Carroll?
2 or 3 years.
Were you well acquainted with him?
Yeah, too well.
Why do you say too well?
Because he has been dragging us around the country since a year ago last October, and has hardly ceased since.
What do you mean by dragging us?
I mean he's been getting arrested all the time. And when he became constable, he carried on still. He arrested my brother on a charge he had been acquitted for by 4 magistrates.
So he was very unfriendly?
Yeah, there was a bad feeling on the part of Carroll's toward us, which he showed every chance he got.
What about John Kennedy? What was the feeling there?
He seemed to go with Carroll all the time, and acted as a deputy constable. We have been bad friends ever since I married his sister.
Did you hear anything from the men outside when your wife got up?
Yeah. Carroll said something either, "What's next?" or like, "What's best?" Kennedy said, "Brother-in-law is easy at last." Whenever he was making fun of me in a crowd, he always called me brother-in-law. I was satisfied that Hogan's words were right, and that it was me they wanted, and they thought I was the one that was shot.
And how long did you remain in your bed?
I did not look out in the window until 4 o'clock.
We're done, bro. Yes! Awful.
I knew you were up there, too.
Just crush my back.
Oh, Jesus, Ken, you push me, prick.
Anything said in the interval?
No, just my wife crying.
When did your brother die?
I whispered to the missus to look at the clock when John died. She came back and said it wanted a minute half past 2.
And when did you leave your bed?
A little bit before daylight.
And where was your brother's body during this time?
Lying dead in the room.
Did you examine your brother's body?
I examined John's breast and counted 29 holes in it, well up towards the collarbone and several near the lungs.
What did you do when you got up?
I called on James Keefe and told him what had occurred and what I had seen. He told me not to speak of it, but to get the constables the first thing.
Did you speak to anyone else?
When I came back from Keefe's, I met Blackwell, and he asked me if I had seen the fire during the night on the Roman line. When Blackwell pointed out to me the direction, I knew it was my father's place. I was afraid the worst was not yet heard. I asked my neighbor, William Walker, if he would go to the old folks and tell the old folks about the affair. When Walker came back, he told me the old folks' house had been burned down and all the bodies were laying there burned up.
No further questions, Your Honor.